Welcome to the Top Advisor Marketing Podcast brought to you by ProudMouth. I'm your host, Matt Halloran. Being your own loud is not new to marketing, but the mindset, strategies, and resources to help you get there are evolving faster than this industry is keeping up. It is time to find a new perspective on what works why and how to move your business forward. Listen as I interview guests to help you learn from them how to be your own loud. Let's get to the show. Hello and welcome to another Top Advisor Marketing Podcast. I am here, of course, with Kirk Lowe. What we are going to talk about is an article that was just written by a company that we have a very good relationship with called MindMeister. Many of you who've been listening to the show for a long time know that we use MindMeister. We believe in it. We absolutely love it. And they featured Kirk in this really great article. We're going to make sure that we have links to that article in the show notes here. But we're going to talk about how to utilize an organizational tool like a mind map so that you can create not just better marketing, but also better systems within your business. And also, we're going to give you a little preview of a added extra bonus, which is this can be a great deliverable to your clients to help them understand their big picture financial plan. All right, Kirk, take it away, brother.
Dude, we were just, Matt and I were just shooting the breeze here talking about this topic. And then all of a sudden he starts recording a podcast. It was lovely. It's like when you want to teach somebody to swim, or if you say, let's go for a swim, and you just grab them by the arm and throw them in the water and say, there we go, we're swimming.
I actually don't think we're supposed to do that anymore, dude, but that's okay.
Oh my
I don't know if that's abusive or what.
My
nowadays.
dad was awful. My dad was awful. And my dad's a really sweet man. But when I was learning to swim, I used to hate swimming with him because he was always pulling me under. Like, what are you doing? That's not fun.
Wow, that's brutal.
But he's actually really kind. So it seemed a little off, but I guess I was his oldest, so he was testing the waters, if you will.
Well, and weren't you like a competitive? Were you a competitive kayaker or canoeer too? Didn't you have to know how to swim, dude? Wasn't that important?
Well, I was also what we called a summer swimmer. So I used to race in the summer. I belonged to an aquatic club and on a lake. And so we would swim 2 times a day, and we would have boating, like competitive kayaking or canoeing practice 3 times a day. And then between we would have chin up contests, play volleyball, basketball. I had an incredible childhood. Anyway, man, we got off topic really quick.
No, you got off topic really quick. I just nudged you in the right direction.
So mind maps, it was really neat when we got contacted by Meister Labs, who own MindMeister. And Meister Labs said, actually first of all, what they did was they saw some social content. And I don't know if we tagged them or not. We may have.
We did.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Got their attention a couple months later. So they were kind of following us a little bit on social media and engaging in our posts. And then we got an email that they wanted to do a story on like a case study / story on how we use mind maps, which is cool. And the article that they pushed out was I think it's a really good article.
It is, yeah.
And what great exposure for us. And it was a lot of fun kind of, experiencing what this was like being called to do something like this. So as it turns out, the notes that we have for our episode today are actually just the notes that I made when I was prepping for the interview. So we're using this for 2 purposes. And, so there's some neat things that happened along the way. And as I was preparing for this interview, that hopefully we can use as lessons to you so that you can try to replicate some of these experiences for yourself in your business.
So before we dive into it more deeply, why is this such an important tool for you in the way you think?
If you've listened to enough of the podcast with me, you know that my mind is racing all the time. A podcast, MindMeister, a mind mapping tool, allows me to keep up with the speed of ideas that come. and to quickly organize them. Actually, what I do first, I'll actually go through the
Yeah, why don't
process
you do
because
that? Yeah, do that, do that.
here's the fun part about this. What we're going to get into right now is that I didn't I didn't create this before being in an actual interview, or it might have been in the prep for an interview with Meister Labs. Created this concept, which the acronym is BOVA, and I'll get into it here. But the first thing that I do when I think about a mind map is brainstorm.
Mhm.
And the concept of brainstorming, which actually they got into, and we talked about inside the article. I'm actually scrolling to it right now because it's a really good description of it. Start a brainstorm that includes all ideas and no judging and no editing.
Mhm.
So what you do is just start firing ideas, whatever the topic is, just start writing stuff. And you can do that quite fast in MindMeister.
Mhm.
In fact, there were a couple of reasons that I chose MindMeister, but speed is one. They're which isn't always the easiest thing in the cloud because some of them, I guess, they pause or hesitate too much. Bandwidth issues on their servers, I suspect. And but I find MindMeister is quick enough that you can do what you need to do. So brainstorm, do not judge, just let it all rip. There'll be a certain point, at least for me, it's kind of like when you're popping popcorn and there's a point where there's the law of diminishing return where you're getting less and less kernels pop because most of them have popped already, and that's when you pull it off the burner, right? When you're brainstorming, it's kind of the same thing. Is when the ideas start to slow down a little bit, what I do is I go to the next step, which is to organize. So I take all my recorded thoughts and I look for connections between those ideas. So mostly I just categorize them. Then all of a sudden you've got a list that isn't not just a list, but it's a branch, right? You get more like a tree. The neat thing about MindMeister is you can choose the structure that you want it to look like. You can look at like an org chart, hierarchical, or you can make it look like right. You can just have it all the branches go all the way around like a real tree and stuff like that. Anyway, so once you get it organized, then what I usually do is I usually go back into brainstorming a little bit, and then I go back into organize again.
Hey everybody, Matt here, just jumping in real quick. If you want to see how Kirk builds a mind map so you can use it for your own brainstorming, we'll show you how. We have a tech stack in the PodRocket Academy where we teach you how to use the different technologies we swear by for podcasting and, of course, influence marketing, including mind mapping with MindMeister. You can get access to the tech stack along with marketing courses by becoming a member of the PodRocket Academy for free. To start your free membership, go now to proudmouth.com/episode 356.
That makes sense?
Yes, so it's a cyclical process, and I want that's what I was kind of glad that you brought that up. It's iterative, right? So
Yeah.
brainstorm, organize. All of the sudden, you have how your brain works, Kirk Lowe, and how I think a lot of our listeners' brain works, which a lot of times seems linear, but when you put it into this linear loop, which actually is not
Yeah.
geometrically possible, but
I don't think this is a me thing at all. I think this is how it should go. Like
nice.
anybody who's doing a mind map for to map out ideas needs to put all the as many ideas as they can. I just find when you start slowing down the way when you start organizing, what that does is it kind of like reignites the fires. It's like throwing
Sure.
gas on the fire. So then the ideas, you can kind of finish off the ideas, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
You probably have a few iterations. You may come back to that 3 or 4 times, organize, or brainstorm, organize, but as many loops as you need to get a complete product. The next thing you do, step 3, is validate. So question whether the ideas are solid and whether they're organized in impactful ways. So it's not just a lot of times it depends on your mind map if it's for you or for somebody else, but if it's for somebody else or even for you, it needs to be so easy to understand when you come back into it or when you share it with somebody else that they know exactly what it means.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So it can't just be an obscure list. Like it's got to make sense. And that's why the organization is so important. But validate it is really to go back and say, did I organize this the right way? Could somebody else grab this and understand exactly what it is? Did I accomplish what I was trying to accomplish when I started to do this mind map? And so judge it. That's when you start judging it, really judging it, when you're validating it. Another part of validate is if you're going to use this to prove a point or to push some recommendations or ideas to somebody else, another form of validation is there more information that I should go get to make this more impactful? So what I mean by that is, for instance, let's say we're using it to do it's like a podcast topic map. And if you look at it, say, it'd be great to have some stats or some facts on these couple of points right here. So go and validate it that way as well. That makes sense? So validate has a couple of different possibilities. One is to add more validation, and the other one is it organized in a way that somebody else could easily understand the context and get value from it. So those are the first three things. And the fourth one is A, which is to assign roles. So for you and I, the main way we use a mind map right now is for topics, for conversations like this. And oftentimes you and I will indicate on the mind map who is going to talk about what point. Depends on how the episode is going to flow, but we'll do that. Either that or you or I may remind the other person to get to the next point by just highlighting that on the map as we're looking at it.
Or type in there and be like, move on. Yes.
Or send a message through, which is kind of funny when it happens. Usually Matt telling me to move on. So BOVA is a kind of a quick little acronym that may be helpful for you as you're using mind maps, but we should talk about the different ways, I suspect.
Well, I just wanted to, one of the neat things and what I love about working with mind maps with you is, and especially in a professional setting, is the outcome. So I wanted to talk about the outcome very quickly. So let's say you're sitting down with a client, or you're coming up with podcast topics or whatever. If you are the person in kind of the driver's seat of the mind map, you can drive it so that it feels like you're achieving the. I just did this recently with one of our existing clients. They were struggling with coming up with topics. And so I went ahead and I pulled up a mind map. We shared our screen and I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put down 4 or 5 ideas, just bam, bam, the brainstorm, bam, 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 bam. It was like tax loss harvesting, 401ks, Roth conversions, life insurance, whatever, just real big, broad topics. And I said, okay, so let's start with the top one. And through discussion, and I would ask him questions, he would start giving me answers, and I would fill the mind map out in real time with him. So it just really gelled the fact that we were moving in the same direction. Now, full disclosure, I knew where I wanted him to end up. But because we were using the mind map to flesh out this mutual discovery, it was really a powerful experience, not just for him, but also for me. And I believe that you can use this in a lot of business ventures, not just being able to create your own content. That makes sense?
Absolutely. Years ago, I'd done some work for a company in Texas, and there were a number of times where I was taken through a branding process. Yeah, I would use a mind map to do discovery. A mind map for discovery is really wonderful with somebody because they feel like you're listening. Well, you have to be if you're doing a mind map while they're talking. It's a great way to keep notes. Anyway, I've got several other meetings booked from that client, just as a courtesy. But where they asked me to come into a meeting with somebody else, that required, like, it was a discovery of like a business idea, and they wanted me to record what the actual business proposition or ideas were, and then also to validate it as a colleague, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those meetings where I did that, people were just in awe of how quickly the mind map could be built and how
Mm-hmm.
meaningful it was. And I know for certain that I could probably have created a business around mind mapping for people. I do believe that. And there's so much, the mind maps have advanced so much with what you can do with them, assigning
Yeah.
actions, accountabilities, linking with project management tools, linking anywhere notes, like there's, exporting them. There's so many cool things you can do.
Yeah.
That could have actually been a business. I don't know if anybody actually does a business like that. I should ask Meister Labs just for fun.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of power in being able to use this to map out any ideas. I mean, you and I have used it for years for business plans,
Hmm.
strategy. Actually, now that I'm talking about this, I did used to use it for doing business plans for people.
How do we use this for marketing? So Top Advisor Marketing Podcast, how would you use this to help somebody create like a content calendar or something like that?
For marketing,
Yeah.
I mean, just put the things that you want to. In the case that you're talking about, what I would probably do is write. I would probably write all the marketing strategy, like the concepts or the categories first, and then I would brainstorm inside of each of those, which is a little different than I normally talk about doing it. If that makes sense.
It does.
But I think that would be a good idea. And then you could assign stuff. You can point to documents in Google Drive from there.
And you can backlink everything too. What
Yeah.
when so something that we do for podcasting when I'm working with clients directly
Mhm.
is we'll just do like we will create a list of 1 to 12 because we know that if we can get 12 episode formats before they ever or formatted before they ever hit record, we know that their confidence goes up exponentially. So that's something that we try to do. So we will go ahead and list 1 to 12. And then the neat thing about it is, and then we'll put headers, right? So let's go back to some of the things that I had said earlier, which is like, let's say Roth conversions, because everybody does podcasts on Roth conversions, because it's something that's misunderstood. And if you start typing out the sub points under Roth conversions, what the mind map helps you realize is, oh, that's a whole nother episode. And then in MindMeister specifically, all you have to do is grab it and move it, and all of a sudden it can become its own category. So that's one of the things that we did. In fact, Kirk, when I interviewed Claire Aiken, who we love dearly here. She's an unbelievable marketer, helps you create unbelievable marketing plans. When I showed her this from Meister Labs, this was one of the things that she says that she uses something similar, but really liked this format because when she helps people come up with a 12-month content calendar, what a great way to do it, to flesh out these ideas, right?
100%. A lot of people can understand a mind map better than they can a doc,
Mhm.
and better than they can a spreadsheet. And so, if that's how you were running stuff before, this can be a very powerful alternative.
I actually know somebody who likes mind maps a lot better than documents and spreadsheets.
Yeah.
It's you. Oh my gosh, guys, we've tried to do podcasts without mind maps and they just don't go as well. This is just Kirk being able to visualize this really sees where he's going, and it keeps him on track and keeps him focused and allows him to communicate
Yeah.
the ideas more effectively.
Linear stuff, your brain, a conversation that's going to have any value doesn't really work when it's linear. It's like
Mhm.
too much scripting, if you will.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always flow that way. We can move around if we need to. For instance, one of the things that I want to go back to the four different ways to
Oh, good
use
call.
a mind map. So we've already talked about content creation for your company. For us, it's also for our clients. Planning, so strategy, marketing, calendars, things like that can be really powerful. The third way is processes.
Mhm.
Having said that, we just started using something called procedure flow, which is probably they're actually kind of similar, basically mind maps. Procedure flow is made for creating procedures. This one may be better for brainstorming and then take it over there. That's a lot of times how I use this.
Mhm.
And the third one is as a service. So I talked a little bit about how a couple of times I've been paid to run it as a service just for fun. But financial advisors is a wonderful opportunity in front of you guys to use it as a service, to do an actual mind map for a client on their financial plan. And another profession that could use this, which would apply to financial advisors as well, is life coaches,
Yeah,
like
for
vision boards.
vision boards. Yeah.
Yeah, MindMeister would be really incredible for doing a vision board because you can add images and you can keep the images open, so you can be inspired by those images while you can see all the branches in the mind map. So I do want to mention that one of my favorite fintech companies around is owned by a company named Asset Map, and essentially what they did is turned financial planning software into a mind mapping tool. Now they've added so much incredible value that if it's specifically for financial planning, you definitely want to go to assetmap.com. And that's run by Adam Holt, who's a friend of ours, actually a client of ours too.
Yeah,
He
they've got a
started
great podcast. Yeah.
podcasting, I guess, about 6 months ago. I think they're on about episode 12 to 15 as we're recording this. I mean, actually, we're filming it too. Hopefully, we're not using the video version because my head's all over the place.
Well, you also walked off the camera. I'm so using this. Are you kidding me? I'm totally sending this to
Okay.
our friend over at Financial Advisor TV. But so
Do you know why I went off camera?
I don't. Do I want to know why?
Because I was rushing for lunch.
Ah.
Rushing. I wasn't Russian. I was rushing for lunch. And I just realized that a piece of my lunch was stuck in my teeth,
Oh, nice. Very nice.
and it was pretty hideous.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're not using this as video. So
Well, we'll
I
zoom
got
in
a
on
big
you. We'll
rotten
zoom in to
tooth.
make sure. Hey, so I want to go back to Adam Holt here
Did
very
our
quickly.
listeners need to know that?
I really didn't, but I want to go back to Adam Holt here because he really, one of the things that he loves about Asset Map and what we love about this is the idea to continue to expand until you don't need to expand those ideas anymore. There is a
Mhm.
termination of the thought. And when you arrive at that thought termination together with somebody, I believe that it deepens relationships. And I think that's really neat because we're all about deepening relationships here at ProudMouth. I mean, that's how you rise above the noise to be your own loud and to really free yourself from the torment of sales. You do that by building real relationships. This is just another one of those tools that we have now. To kind of wrap this up today, I definitely want to talk a little bit more about something you said early on, which I think is a gift that not a lot of people give themselves, which is the non-judgmental brainstorming.
Mhm.
I want you to expand on that a little bit more because we do that all the time here. Where it's not, no, don't put that on the map. It's okay, put it on the map. Let's go ahead and then once you're second or third tier out from the idea, then you can see if there's validity or not. But how would you stoke people? So as people are listening to this, I really hope that they go to Meister Labs and download MindMeister. We'll have links for that. But more importantly, I want them to start brainstorming to see their own level of creativity. And Kirk, you have been fostering creativity for a long time. How would you pump up our listeners right now to realize that when they get on a mind map and they start unapologetically brainstorming, what are some techniques and tips and tricks that you've taught people in the past to make it so that they get those juices flowing?
I think there's so many cool applications for mind mapping, and not judging them is the only way to get to a place where you can then begin to organize. Because if you start organizing and judging as you're doing it, you lose all the opportunity. What you also do is you put your brain in a different mode, which is judging, and you can't do that early in it. You just got to let it rip. Like even if they're silly or stupid or what, it doesn't even matter if they're off topic a little bit. Like just let it go, because sometimes it can take a really interesting direction when you do that. You don't, a mind map is almost like, here's why here's the purpose I'm doing it. Here's what I think it's going to be about, and just let it rip. What's really fun too is doing a mind map at the same time with somebody else.
Yeah.
We've done that a number of times. And a lot of times what happens is I'll start it and we'll be in prep for a podcast and say, come on, what do you think? I start organize it. You add your thoughts. Sometimes you color outside of my lines and vice versa. And that may add some more value to what we're doing, which is really interesting. But before we end, I wanted to actually talk about one of the greater lessons of this podcast isn't even something we've mentioned. And that is that when you find the way to share your expertise and your wisdom, and you can put it out into the world, all kinds of cool things happen. It doesn't mean every time you do something, a company like Meister Labs comes along and says, hey, we want to profile you. By the way, Meister Labs, I don't know how many clients they have, but I'm guessing it's in the tens of thousands at least. And their audiences are probably in the hundreds of thousands. They're a big company. They're a European company. I don't remember which country, but I know that their LinkedIn profile has several different languages, which is cool. Anyway, I did the article in German, Dutch, French. I'm just kidding.
Wow.
But I do have those European countries running through my blood. So I think if you've never done a mind map, what a really cool experiment it would be. In anytime you're listening to this podcast, you've never done it. If you've done them before but haven't given them time to work, or you haven't found the right tool, go visit mindmeister.com. Meister is Meister, just in case anybody's struggling with that. And have some fun, but use it for all kinds of different purposes. And if you're thinking about using it for your financial planning practice to give advice and run discoveries and things like that, there's a lot of different uses in your business, even for your clients. Go check out assetmap.com.
Yeah.
They're amazing. I love that piece of software. It's won awards. They have a lot of users worldwide. They're growing all the time. And I love what they have. And then blow your clients away with that. I mean,
yeah,
a lot of people are visual. You'd be shocked how many people would probably love looking at a mind map for stuff like that.
Great way to stay organized. Great way that we stay organized. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful way for you to communicate ideas to make sure that they're clear. And my favorite part of it is, again, that thought termination. So many of us don't ever allow our brains to think to the end of a thought because we jump past. If you use something like this, you can get to the actual resolution of a thought, which I actually think is cathartic and really, really powerful. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap up today's show. Once again, if you don't mind, check out ProudMouth.com/academy. Make sure that you're checking out our academy because that's what's sponsoring our show today and will be sponsoring from here on out. It is free to join. So jump on in, find out how you too can accelerate your influence. For Kirk Lowe, for MindMeister, for Asset Map. So for all of those people, I'm Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon. Thanks for listening to the Top Advisor Marketing Podcast, brought to you by ProudMouth. If you want to know more about how you can be your own loud, visit us at ProudMouth.com and sign up for the PodRocket Academy. Through courses and office hours led by professional podcast producers and digital marketers, you will learn everything you need to know to become the trusted subject matter expert you were meant to be.